All right, so we'll jump into our next topic, guys. That is Oracle Segment Advisor. Now, this is very important. This is important both based on your real-time activities and also based on your Oracle certification. What is Segment Advisor? Now, before I talk about the Oracle Segment Advisor, you need to first know what is fragmentation. That is more important. You might have heard about fragmented disk in Windows. What exactly is fragmentation? See, when you try to store the data on a disk, right? I'm just creating some example. Let's take you are trying to store some data. What happens is it will take linear space on the disk. Let's take, it has taken this space on the disk, right? That means all the sectors that are allocated, they are side by side, right? All the sectors, like when Oracle is inserting data or any other file that you try to store, what hard disk will do is it will store the data side by side in the blocks or the sectors, we call it exactly on the hard disk. Now, with time, what happens is, let's take, definitely your database will have deletes, updates. These deletes and updates, what they do is they kind of create some empty area within the linear storage. Like you tend to delete a couple of records, or you tend to update some data. For example, the earlier length of the name was 30 characters, and now you have updated the name and the new one is 10 characters. So what happens is some empty pits are created inside the database. Now these empty pits, the problem with these empty pits is they're not enough to store a new record, and that actually wastes a lot of space, because if you combine all this small little empty spaces, it creates a big free space. So this kind of distribution of data is known as fragmentation. That means data is fragmented here and there, and there are some empty pockets that are created within the hard disk, but that single empty pocket is not enough for you to reuse it for other purpose. You cannot put another record into it, or you cannot put some data. Now this is pure example of wastage of hard disk space, and there is no option to avoid it as of now. There is no technology as of now to avoid this kind of problem. So what do you do? Your job as a DBA is to identify these empty pockets. I mean, you don't technically do it, but what you do is you kind of like run advisors. Like we have an Oracle Segment Advisor. It will advise like how much space you can reclaim or how much free space you can get out of the fragmented space. Let's take, what happens is if all these empty areas are combined, then your new data will look something like this. It will come till here. Now you have a good free space. Let me draw it in a better way. Now, can you see you have a good free space? This free space on hard disk can be reused, right? This is the beauty of defragmentation. Now, the process of combining all the empty pits into one big free space, I repeat, the process of combining all the empty pits into one big free space is known as defragmentation. So what is fragmentation? With data updates and deletes, it actually creates some empty pockets on the hard disk, and it is hard to reuse those empty areas because they are not big enough to store new data. That is fragmentation. Defragmentation is combining all the empty pockets into one big free space so that you can reuse it on the hard disk. Now, to do this defragmentation, that means to crush or make a shuffle within your hard disk, definitely the rows will be moved. Rows will move from different location and they will settle down, and that empty space will be released. The question is, should you go ahead and do the defragment activity right inside the database, or should there be a good method? Because see, for every hypothetical situation, we need to know, okay, I know that our database is running for like 6 months. I know that there are a lot of deletes and updates. I know that disk will definitely be fragmented. The data is fragmented. But the question is, I still want to know, if I perform the fragmentation, how much benefit of space will I get, or how much free space can I reclaim, or how much, how many blocks have been released. I want to know that information even before I start the defragmentation activity. And that is where Oracle Segment Advisor will come into picture. So what is Oracle Segment Advisor? It is a utility provided by Oracle that will help you. It will actually fragment your, it will perform the defragmentation for you. It will also show you how much data has been saved, or how much space can be reclaimed when you perform the defragmentation activity. Now, this is across all the applications. This is not just really with Oracle. Even fragmentation is a problem with the Windows operating system also. And there are tools that will allow you to defragment the data. So the question lies or comes down to one thing. How do I know how much can I save, and which is the good or probable candidate to know about the fragmentation? Like, how do I know which segments will give me like the amount of space I can save? Now, this is a once in a time activity. You don't really do it depending on what type of database you're working, but you should know this activity because you're a DBA. Plus, the segment advisor is something you tend to run whenever your client asks you, hey, can we check the status of hard disk, the health, and the health of the database? And when you perform the database health check, that is when you also work with the segment advisor. So I will just walk you through the article that I have, because I again want you guys to work on this. So segment advisor. Oracle Segment Advisor. This activity I have created where we are actually performing a real-time task. We are trying to insert, we are trying to create a table. We are inserting 100,000 records into the table. Then we are creating an index onto the table. Then we are running the statistics. Don't worry, I'll be walking you through each and every step one by one. So we'll be analyzing the table statistics. Then we will delete records from the table. So we are deleting the half of the records from the table. So what this will do is, we are not deleting linear. Remember, guys. So there are two ways to delete. You might say like, okay, Arun, if we are deleting half of the rows, then there won't be any fragmentation. So let's take, if the record number starts with 1 and it goes to 100, for example, I can always delete the records like 1 to 50, right? But this will again create a linear empty space within the hard disk. Our goal is try to delete records which are having odd numbers or odd record numbers. That will create lot of free empty space within the hard disk. Now that is something we are doing in this activity. We are wantedly deleting the odd records which are like from the hard disk, so that it creates a lot of empty space which is not reusable. So if you see, we are trying to write a loop over here. So what we are doing is, we are trying to like for okay, I'll quickly walk you through and then we'll revise step by step again. In this one, we are trying to delete leaving one record and going with the odd records. We are deleting all the odd records from the table, and then we are analyzing the statistics of the table again. The thing is, when you analyze again, even after the delete, Oracle will say that, okay, it has been using the same amount of space. It will not release the space immediately. Like, this never happens, guys. If you delete, then Oracle will release the space, or the table space will release the space. It doesn't happen like that. So the statistics that you gather after deleting the records, it will still show you wrong information. Now, this is where the catch is. What we need to do is we need to run the Oracle Segment Advisor. So what we do is, you cannot run the Segment Advisor right away. There are some PLSQL procedures that you need to create in order to create a task. So the Segment Advisor, it's a PLSQL package. It's inside your database. You can see DBMS underscore advisor. So what you do is you create tasks for the DBMS advisor, and you are telling the database or database advisor to give us advice as to how much space can we save if we perform the defragmentation. It is very simple. You might think like, oh, what all, or you need to write this code. No, what you need to do is, in this entire PLSQL code, you just change the name of your table. You can put whatever the task name you want. You can give any advisor name, like segment advisor, and then just change the object type, like the attribute one, that is the owner of the object. Who's the owner of the object? If you're doing it with sys user, just change that one, and then the table name. These are the only two things you need to change technically in this entire script, and then you copy and run it. Now you might have a question like, we are running it for the table. All right, so guys, we have a table, and we also created an index on this table, right? So we have an index. So if we are deleting records, the odd records, even there will be indexes that are deleted from the hard disk, right? The odd number of indexes. That means even the index needs to be defragmented. So even though we have to defragment the table storage, this is table, this is related to records. The same goes with index also. So what we do is, we try to create two tasks. So the first task in the advisor is to check the or give us recommendation on the table, and then we create a second task for the index, which is created on the table, and then we verify whether the above tasks are completed. You can use this command. Now what you have to do is, you need to review the segment advisor. See, we ran the task. We need to check what is the advice our DBMS advisor is giving. So when you run this one, you will get the details as to how much space you can save. Like, the general output will be like, run XYZ command. If you see this one, mostly the advisor will recommend you to run shrink space command. This is the output of the above command. I think I should have included the screenshots. I'll do it. I'll improve this article. So mostly the advisor will give recommendation to shrink space command and on the particular table, and give an estimate as to how much space can be saved. So this command will give you output of two things: what all commands you need to run on a table in order to perform the defragmentation activity. It will give you the genuine commands. You can copy paste and run the commands. And second, it will also tell you, if you run those commands, how much space on hard disk you can save. So these are the general commands that are given by the above output. You run these commands, you enable the row movement, you shrink the space. When you shrink the space, what happens is, these empty pockets are removed, and this is exactly what happens. Like, it creates a big empty space. It will shrink your records, and it will remove the empty spaces to create one big empty space. All right. So you can see we are doing this shrink on table. This is the table name. And then we are using cascade. When you use cascade, what happens is it will perform the shrinking both on the table as well as your index. So you don't need to separately run command for your index. Don't worry. Once you do it, what we are doing is we are running the statistics again. We are telling Oracle to gather the statistics of the mm, table and the segment. And at this point, once you have run this shrink space command, you will see a change in the size. You will see the change in the number of blocks that are being used, because now the blocks have been reduced. So once you shrink the space, you see Oracle has compute good statistics. What you can do is you can deallocate the space. That means the free space that you have created with the defragmentation, still Oracle thinks that it is being used by the table, like XYZ table. What we have to do is we have to release this space, or we have to tell Oracle that this space is reusable by the table space. And for that, what we need to do is we need to deallocate, or this is the command like alter table, seg table, like that's the table name, deallocate unused space. So there are two important things over here. We are shrinking all the records so that all the empty spaces combine into a big space. And then we are telling Oracle to use this big free space, or we are allowing it to tell the table space that, okay, this unused space can now be used. So we are deallocating the unused space. And after this, like, you can delete the tasks that we created, like the advisor tasks. These two tasks that you created, you can also delete it. So this was a quick overview of the task, but I want to get into it again one by one to walk you through. So guys, the Oracle Segment Advisor, it is a utility that will allow you to know that how much space you can gather when there is fragmentation on the disk. So what we are doing is, in this activity, we are creating a test table space because we don't want to disturb our existing table spaces. So you create a table space, and the beauty about this activity is everything starts with SEG because it is related to segment. So I'm creating a segment table space. This is the data file. And for this activity, I guess 2 GB is more than enough to allocate as a data file. Now within this table space, now that we have created this seg TBS, we are creating a table, seg table, all right? And you can see I have specified the table space command. So even though as sys user, I'm creating this table, it will be stored inside this seg TBS table space. So I have a note over here. This is important for all of you. You can use this method to create new tables into a different table space, even though the default table space of the user is different. For example, this is user, the default table space will be the system table space, right? But I can always force saying that the new table that I'm creating, it must be stored in a different table space with this clause. Now, once you create the table, we are running a PLSQL program with a for loop, which will insert 100,000 records inside the table. So insert into seg table values, and we are calling the I is the counter over here, which starts at 1 and it will stop at this number. And in the text column, that is second column, I am using a database random string, and I want Oracle to insert some random text. All right. So this generates random text for our second column. Yes, who is it? SID.
Hey Arun, this is Sridhar actually. So,
Hey Sridhar.
a quick question when we talk about the shrinking space and row movement. So, will that row ID get changed when we do this activity for any record that we have? If we delete some other records and when we do this defragmentation, and the row ID gets changed for the transactions that already data there.
Right. I guess your question is, will row ID will change? If row ID is being moved, row is being moved from the physical location, definitely it will be changed.
No, not for the deleted records I'm talking about. So
Yeah, for the existing records, if they are changing the position on the hard disk, then definitely row ID will change.
so will I think that will cause an issue, right? If sometimes if development team or anybody using that based on the row ID when they are doing which record is the latest record or which record is the previously inserted record, when they are doing some that kind of operation that would impact, right?
Of course. So that is the main reason. I remember last time also I mentioned this, like if your development team is using row ID, that is something of a big concern to me, because I would definitely not want any environment to use the row IDs. So definitely it will have an impact to it. So this is the main reason the development team or any team, they should access the database with the index or the key column. And I guess that's the reason why we have normalization in place.
So 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 to conclude this, so when we are doing defragmentation, we need to ensure that row ID is not being used within the code for comparison or doing any operation.
So, Sridhar, this is the thing, like for the entire experience that I have, and even though I'm currently working with so many clients, I have never seen a development team that is using row IDs. And I don't see again a business case to use it, like whatever maybe the development is, until unless it is critical for the, if they are creating a product that is related to analyze the, I'm just guessing, okay, if it is related to analyzing the performance of the records of the database. And I think that would be one scenario. Again, the application team has to define it very broadly as to why they're referring. So anyone outside the DBA world, I guess they should only use key columns. Like I'm just trying to, okay, one good example is you will never allow the sys role to be used, or sysdba role to be used by someone else, or you will never share the sys credentials because you're the DBA. The same way when it comes to the database, I think row IDs is something which is close to Oracle DBA. So if anyone outside of the DBA wants to access the tables, they should only do it via the SID. And I, is that the reason you put your sorry, I'm talking not the SID, the key column.
I mean, two things actually. I have seen, one of my current environment where table doesn't have any indexes or primary keys, and sometimes if there is, and obviously there will be duplicate records, and when they are clearing up, they use row ID. And I have seen that. At the same time, I was asked this question in interview. So when you are doing this defragmentation or reclaim the space and all, so will that row ID gets changed or not? If without changing the row ID, how can you do that? These kind of questions actually. I was wondering whether we can do without changing the row ID. Can we do defragmentation for the existing records?
I don't think you can't do that one, because if you do that, again, there is another concept that comes in between, that is row chaining. We need to consider that also to answer this question. But to keep it very simple, I guess it's not possible to do defragmentation without change of it. I'll give you a logical relation to this, because I always love things with examples. See, it's very simple. You have a bookshelf, okay, and you remove half of the books in the order like how we have deleted the space just now. Now, when you compress all the books, definitely the books are changing their positions, right? So to refer back to the book, it will not be in the same position until unless the starting and the first empty space that is met, those book will always be in the same space. But after that, the books that are changing, definitely their positions have changed. So it won't be possible to do it.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Saying the row IDs are static. The pointers are static. They won't get changed. But when we do defragmentation, the data will be moved, in order to make those free space available.
Mm-hmm.
Am
I
I
think
correct?
Suryakant, you had one point.
Yeah, can I add Arun one? Actually, in the I think long back we did this activity. There is something called row movement, enabling row movement. Something is related to this same question. Just I'm guessing.
No. I think, I mean, you have to enable row movement, but like Sid question is different. So Sridhar, like in that case, I would suggest you to take this as a POC and then try it on the test database, like we have the cloud database, right? And see it, because as far as I know, it would definitely change it. It would definitely change. And you can see when you say pointer, again, pointer is a different, I mean, I would go to a different concept, which I don't want to go, but I would suggest you try to do it and let us also know.
Okay, I'll try.
Arun, in DBM, there's a concept called reorg. I'm
Right.
not sure if it's available in Oracle. What is being done is during this process, the data will be exported and finally it will be imported where the defragmentation will be taken care. Is it there in Oracle?
No, I mean, I have never used it and I have never seen it also in any real-time environment, but I'm not sure if that is something there. So no idea about it.
Okay.
Right. I think the reorg, it is related to something else. I can clearly remember I've used it once, but I'm not sure like if it is related to segment. The reorg option, I guess I have used it once, but it is not related to segments. But I cannot recollect exactly when I've used it.
Arun, there was something called shrink command from alter table shrink something.
Yes, sir.
Older
That is
version.
something we use it over here only when we get the advice from the advisor. We use it over here. Can you see this is the exact command to shrink the space. So
yeah, correct.
yeah, Sridhar, I would definitely want to know the answer for the question, because what you're saying, I doubt. And I would again want to confirm it. If you can take this as a POC, like create a small table. You don't need to create a table. I think use the same activity where we are deleting 50% of the records and then try to match a couple of the record IDs.
Yeah, absolutely. I can test it actually. But if I was asked in interview, so that would impact business, right? Why you want to do? And they asked in negative way, and I couldn't answer. Actually, I was not practically experienced before.
No,
So,
that's you know what?
test.
Like when I'll be honest with you guys, because after taking so many interviews, it is something important that most of the interviewers, they'll ask questions which has no answer, because we want to know how confident are you on things that actually do not work. Like for example, I generally try to play with candidates. This is something I should not do, but that's how things work. So what I do is I generally ask this question: come on, with Armin I can recover everything, and I can't recover a redo log. How can it be possible? Please tell me. Please come up with a concept. No, I think you know the answer, you're not able to get the answer. Try it. And that's the exact point. We try to see how analytical someone can be, and can they prove their point. Even though if it is not possible, even though there is loss of transactions, forget about the multiplexing, I'm not going on that side, I'm talking like real loss, then I want to see how analytical they are. So Siddharth, like in your case, if we go with an analytical way, like if you're going with library example, if you're removing books and shrinking the books, collapsing them, definitely their position changes. So that's why I believe like definitely there has to be change in the row IDs. But please come up with the answer. Even if I'm wrong, it would definitely be a great learning.
Sure, thank you.
Amazing, guys. So let us continue. Like, this activity is amazing because all these steps are there, but I want you to do it. So what we are doing is we have created a table space. We are creating a table. We are inserting 100,000 records into the table. We are creating an index on this table. And after creating an index, we are analyzing, we are asking Oracle to compute the statistics on this table and the index, both table and the index. Now, what we are doing is we are checking the details of the segment as to what is the size of the segment. Like, you can see what type of segment it is, what is the segment name, and the size. This is the exact size in megabytes. These are the number of blocks that are being used by the specific table and the extents. And guys, this command you can always use to check for any table or any index as to exactly how many blocks, what is the exact size, and the extents they are using. Now, what we are doing is wantedly we are deleting the records which are like where the first column, that is ID column, you can see for I in this ID column. If you see if mod, we are dividing every number in the ID column by 2, and if it is not divisible by 2, not equal to 0, or the remainder is not equal to 0, then we are deleting the record. So that way, like, every odd record will be deleted out of the database. And then we are again performing the count of total rows on the table. So we are counting before deleting and we are counting after deleting. So after you delete, I think you should have how many 50,000 records inside the table, but it has created extremely large fragmented space, right? This is the main catch, guys. This is very important for you to understand. Even though you delete it, the statistics will give you wrong information. It will actually tell you like, okay, use the table and the index, they are using the full space. So the output of this command will be exactly same as output of this command before deletion. So we analyze the table before deletion and we are analyzing the table and index after deletion. The results will be same. Now this is where we are using Oracle Segment Advisor. So in the Segment Advisor, you need to create a task for the table. Just change the owner and the table name, nothing else. The same goes with the index. For the index also change the owner and the index name, done. You need to copy it, run it in the SQL, and then you can run this command to quickly check whether these two tasks are completed. Once they are completed, use this query and this will actually give you the recommendation. Like, okay, it will tell you to run these commands. It will actually give you these commands. Okay, it will tell you that you have to enable the row movement, run the shrink space command, and disable the row movement. After giving these commands, it will tell you that when you run these commands, it will, like Oracle, it will reclaim some amount of space. Now there is something I want to mention over here. Many people will say like, oh, it was recommending me 10 GB space, but when I ran, it was able to reclaim only 8 GB space. Why that 2 GB is not reclaimed? See guys, these all recommendations, they work on sampling basis. Okay, so it is a sample which is taken and then it gives you estimates which might not be 100% correct, and technically every time it is not correct. So most of the time, as far as you will see while working with this Segment Advisor, the amount of space it will show you that you will save so much space, it will not always be exactly how much you will save. It will be a little bit more or less. So don't always stick to the advisor, get a rough estimate, and if you believe that rough estimate makes sense, then definitely go for shrinking the table. Like in this case, we started shrinking the table, and these commands will be given in this above output. You need not even remember these commands. And after these commands are run, you need to analyze the table and index again. And this time, your segments, you can actually see that the space has been reduced on the disk and you have created a big free space inside the database. And once this is done, what you can do is you can deallocate the space so that your like Oracle knows that that space can be used by the table space. And at the end, the about task that we have created within the DBMS advisor, you can delete the task. So give the task name. Now, if you're copying from this article, you can directly use this command. If you're changing the task name, and where do you change the task name? In this PLSQL procedure, can you see task name? If you're changing this task name, like for this one, analyze index task, this is a task for analyzing index, and this is analyze table task. So if you're changing the task name, definitely please use the correct task names. Now, this is an article which I want you to execute. One important point before we conclude our session is, where is it? See guys, this is a very small activity. Can you see we are working on a 2 GB table space. So this activity will not result in perfect, what do you call, statistics. So even though we are inserting so many records, definitely in this activity, of course, you will see, change in the space that is saved. But what I want to recommend personally is use the segment advisor for any table space that is above 50 or 100 GBs, because that's when it adds value in your environment when you speak to your client. Don't use the segment advisor for small table spaces like 2 GB, 4 GB, or maybe 15, 20 GB. That because the space that you're saving is in MBs, until unless there is a real big delete inside the database. But I personally suggest and recommend, I think I should add this recommendation somewhere down over here, that to use this Oracle segment advisor only when your table space size is above 100 GB, because it makes more sense. It will give you details about how much GBs you can save.
Arun, you do not put any lock on while shrinking the table?
Sorry guys, just one by one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Arun, my concern is, does it lock the row while shrinking the table, or row lock something?
No, it does not lock the table, but what happens is when you try to shrink, no, it won't create another table. No, I don't think it will lock the records. But for the movement part, the shrink part, I'm not sure. I never thought in that way, like it will lock or not lock. But let's analyze it on an analytical way. If the row is being moved, then definitely there is a shuffling going on inside the database.
I have experience with the segment advisor.
Amazing,
It's
Ahmed. Please.
It's lock object, and if we have index based on function, it not we have to drop index to drop indexes based function, and run the command for analyze shrink table indexes and then create indexes.
Right. I mean, that's the same point or same conclusion I was arriving at, because see, if there is a row shuffling going on inside the database on an analytical thinking, if we are talking, definitely there has to be a lock on the records before Oracle can perform that operation. Yes, Satish?
Yeah, but when there is all the bits are getting gathered, there should be a movement of the data, right, in a particular table space.
Yes.
Now, when there is physical movement of the data, can the user access it? Actually, that's my question.
See, whether the data is locked, of course, a lock mechanism is our tomorrow's topic. If data is locked, that doesn't mean that you can't read it. You can always read it, but you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So reading is allowed on the data, whether it is locked or unlocked. So